In the twilight years of Earth's recovery from ecological collapse, humanity had just begun to find its place among the stars. Amidst gleaming starships and corporate fleets, one man remained largely forgotten: Commander Elias Kael, a pilot who had never tasted victory nor glory. He was posted to routine patrols at the edge of Terran space, a quiet sector overshadowed by trade routes and diplomatic centers. His comrades mocked him as the relic, a man clinging to outdated instincts in an age where artificial intelligence flew most ships. Yet what no one foresaw was that Kael's human intuition, the very thing dismissed as obsolete, would soon alter the fate of entire galaxies. Strange signals began to appear at the fringes of the Orion expanse. Most dismissed them as natural stellar interference, but Kael noticed the subtle patterns hidden beneath the noise. While AI dismissed anomalies as statistical flukes, his instinct screamed otherwise. He spent nights poring over star maps connecting the dots that machines overlooked. When he reported his findings, High Command waved him off with polite skepticism. "The stars are full of whispers," they told him, "and we cannot chase them all." Still, Kael trusted his gut, and it was that trust which led him to be the first to witness the coming storm. The storm had a name, the Kethari, an ancient nomadic species thought extinct. They re-emerged from the void with ships unlike anything recorded. Their vessels resembled jagged obsidian shards, bending starlight around them as if cloaked in shadows. Where they appeared, colonies fell silent. Whole moons were stripped bare, their populations vanished. Humanity's allies, the Varen scholars, the insectoid Cthulhu, retreated, terrified by legends of the Kethari as harvesters of suns. Only Elias Kael, sitting in the cockpit of his aging fighter Horizon's Edge, seemed willing to fly toward the unknown rather than away. Kael's first brush with the Kethari was not in battle but in silence. Deep in the Orion expanse, he trailed their warships across a dead system. They did not broadcast, did not parley, did not answer hails. But when their ships turned toward him, he felt it, like a predator acknowledging prey. Kael's fighter shuddered under waves of interference. His instruments scrambled, yet his human hands found patterns in the chaos, dodging blasts of energy that curved like liquid lightning. He escaped where an AI pilot would have failed. For the first time, the galaxy realized humans could resist the Kethari. As weeks passed, Kael uncovered another truth. Within the static that followed the Kethari, faint echoes existed, not random but structured. It was language, or perhaps cries. Alone in his cockpit, he began to record and mimic their signals, whispering back into the void. What emerged was chilling. The Kethari were not mindless destroyers. They were survivors, feeding on stars to preserve their dying biology. To them, conquest was necessity. Kael knew then that this war would not be won through firepower alone. Humanity needed a bridge, and he, an outcast pilot, had stumbled onto the first stone. But humans were not alone in the galaxy. The Cthulhu demanded immediate war. The Varen called for retreat, and the Terran Council hesitated, trapped in politics. For Kael, diplomacy meant delays humanity could not afford. He flew missions without sanction, recording the patterns of Kethari ships, mapping their weaknesses, and slowly earning the loyalty of outcast crews, smugglers, deserters, even alien renegades. They became the Ghost Fleet, a ragtag band who trusted Kael's vision over the cold strategies of generals. Among them, legends began to stir, a human pilot who could read the silence of the stars. The first true test came at the Arendor Rift, where a Terran mining colony fell under Kethari assault. While the council debated, Kael's Ghost Fleet arrived. Against a swarm of obsidian warships, they fought with desperation. Kael wove his fighter through impossible odds, predicting enemy movements with uncanny precision. At the height of battle, he broadcast the strange echoes he had learned, and to everyone's shock, the Kethari hesitated. For 20 precious seconds, their assault faltered, long enough for civilians to evacuate. The rift burned, but the legend of the human pilot spread like wildfire. With fame came enemies. Admirals despised him for undermining command. Politicians accused him of fabricating myths, and allies doubted the possibility of peace with the Kethari. Yet Kael pressed on. He believed the echoes hinted at a faction within the Kethari, those unwilling to harvest endlessly. But as he dug deeper, he uncovered betrayal closer to home. Terran corporations were secretly negotiating with the Kethari, offering resources in exchange for survival. To them, Kael's defiance threatened profits. Orders were issued for his arrest. For the second time, humanity was willing to abandon its own savior. Kael refused surrender. With the Ghost Fleet, he fled deeper into the expanse, hunted by both Terran enforcers and Kethari scouts. In exile, he found clarity. Among shattered systems and dead suns, the Ghost Fleet discovered evidence of Kethari, desperation, ancient vaults of genetic decay, proof that their kind was dying. To Kael, this was not just war, it was tragedy. But convincing the galaxy to see enemies as victims would take more than proof. It would take sacrifice and a story written in blood. When the Kethari flagship, the Oblivion Maw, approached Solara Gate, humanity braced for annihilation. Kael returned from exile at the helm of the Ghost Fleet, defying arrest warrants to stand between Earth and extinction. The battle raged for hours, fighters tearing through debris fields, dreadnoughts trading suns of fire. In the chaos, Kael locked onto the Maw's leader, an ancient being pulsing with dark energy. He challenged it not through missiles but through resonance, broadcasting human voices into the static, cries of mothers, laughter of children, whispers of love. For the first time, the Maw paused, and in that pause, humanity struck. The Maw's destruction tore a hole in the sky. The Kethari scattered, disoriented, their unity fractured. But Kael's fleet was broken too. Half his comrades lost, his fighter bleeding sparks. He drifted through wreckage, haunted by the silence after battle. Victory had come, but not peace. The Kethari were not defeated, only delayed. Kael knew then that his mission had only begun. The galaxy needed more than battles, it needed transformation. In the aftermath, Kael became both outlaw and legend. Across colonies, his name was spoken in hushed tones, not as a soldier, but as a visionary. He shared recordings of the echoes, teaching that the Kethari were not demons, but desperate. Slowly, scholars, rebels, and dreamers joined him, building secret channels to communicate across species. Kael was no longer just a pilot, he was a bridge. Yet bridges are fragile and enemies waited to burn them. Terran High Command, fearing Kael's influence, branded him a traitor. They unleashed assassins and bounty hunters to silence him. One night, as his ship docked at a forgotten outpost, betrayal struck. A missile ripped through the station, killing dozens of his followers. Kael survived, scarred and enraged, but his dream nearly died in that blaze. Only the voices of those who still believed, the Ghost Fleet survivors, the children he had saved, pulled him from despair. If not you, they told him, then who will teach the stars what it means to be human? The galaxy shifted when fragments of Kethari themselves reached out. A splinter group, weary of endless consumption, sought Kael's help. They admitted their species' doom and begged for coexistence rather than conquest. Together, they forged the first fragile pact of understanding, sealed not by governments but by exiles. For the first time in centuries, the Kethari fought not against humanity, but beside them, defying their own kind. The tide of history began to turn, not with weapons but with choice. Years later, when Elias Kael finally vanished into the unknown, stories of him endured. Some said he died in battle, others that he lived among the Kethari, teaching them hope. But across galaxies, one truth remained. A forgotten pilot had altered destiny. He had shown that humanity's true weapon was not technology, not fleets, not firepower, but the courage to see enemies as more than monsters. They called him the human pilot who changed the stars, and his legacy was not just survival, but transformation.